from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Planting continues even as the month of June looms large. The latest in crop conditions from USDA. In agribusiness, what does it all mean to markets?
Nobody's gotten excited about any slow pace, but they are starting now to question what the quality of the crop might be.
Plus, a new invention gets water with help from the sun. And is this a new business model for grape growers in the Pacific Northwest?
Agday, brought to you by the dependable, longest-lasting Chevy Silverado.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Following Memorial Day, the ag industry sits in anticipation of the latest crop progress report from USDA, including the first national condition report. USDA says 65% of the nation's corn crop is rated good to excellent, 28% is fair. That follows weeks of drenching rains and thousands of acres of replant in the heart of the Corn Belt. Currently, 91% of the crop has been planted. That's 2 points behind the 5-year average. 73% has emerged. Now on soybeans, 67% of the crop is now planted and 37% has emerged. Both are behind the 5-year average. About half of the winter wheat crop is now rated good to excellent, a decline of 2 points from a week ago. 80% is now heading. It's 100% in Texas and Oklahoma, where harvest has started. Meanwhile, wheat harvest is moving through the southern plains, including southwest Oklahoma. Cody Goodnight of Chattanooga has been harvesting since last Wednesday. He brought the first 2 loads to his local elevator and says a hailstorm a week ago left an inch of hail in his backyard.
Wheat crop wasn't excellent by any means. It was just barely average, but the hail Monday night sure hurt it pretty good. I don't know if you can see it on the combine, but the tires are covered in mud. The ground is still really wet. The wheat is ripe, but the ground is wet. It's a little slow going at the moment.
There's more rain in the forecast for the area later this week. Meanwhile, while harvest progresses in Texas, soil moisture continues to improve. The latest report showing 22% of the Lone Star State is considered abnormally dry. That number was 34% the week prior. One panhandle producer saying that rains are helping the soil profile.
It's doing, actually, if everything's really good, we need a little more heat, but that's still all right. We've got a good profile and a lot of dryland stuff and irrigated stuff's all up. We're doing pretty good.
So is the wheat doing okay in this area?
Wheat's doing all right. Some got held on, but you know, it's still doing okay. In the long run, it'll be fine.
This area was hit with extreme weather the last 60 days, from wildfires to rain, even snow. On trade, China a major focus for negotiators in Washington. Chinese officials making a major move in that relationship, issuing a list of concessions that it says can help deliver a win-win partnership with America. The list is part of a 117-page document released by the Ministry of Commerce. It says China wants to improve infrastructure cooperation with the U.S. while taking more imports of goods, including soybeans and other ag products like cotton. A 100-day review of the bilateral trade relationship is due to finish up in July. A deal earlier this month allows more U.S. access to the Chinese market for beef, natural gas, and financial services. Now, part of that means speeding up negotiations on traceability, inspection, and quarantine procedures for beef sold into the Chinese market. Meanwhile, another trading destination may end up on the chopping block. Our partners of the radio program AgriTalk talking with leaders at the U.S.-Cuba Trade and Economic Council. Well, they tell Mike Adams that President Trump's planning to partially roll back policies softening relations with Cuba. They say this could have serious repercussions for agriculture and food finding its way to communist Cuba.
Fortunately, the Cuban government could have done a lot more in the 2015-2016 period with the Obama administration to help U.S. companies solidify a presence in Cuba that would have made it much more difficult for President Trump to do anything. And so now we're in a position where, although we continue to have agricultural commodity exports and food product exports to Cuba and healthcare product exports to Cuba, a little bit of coffee from Cuba, a little bit of charcoal from Cuba, there could have been a lot more.
Former President Obama softening regulations on some trade, business, and travel. However, the 57-year-old embargo remains in place. Meanwhile, in Brazil, JBS, the world's largest meat packer, announcing that Josley Batista is resigning as chairman and member of the board. Company owners and brothers Josley and Wesley Batista are currently at the center of a political crisis, alleging that they bribed hundreds of politicians and accused Brazil's President Michel Temer of endorsing the bribing of a witness in that country's largest meat scandal. Both brothers resigned from their senior post effective immediately. Back in the States, Mike Hoffman joins us this morning with a look at today's crop comments. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning to you, Clinton. Let's start off in East Central Illinois. Ron Haas sent us a photo when he replanted a field. Here's another photo taken an hour and a half later after it rained. He's calling this season Replant 2017. And over in Watertown, South Dakota, Alex Holsworth is chopping alfalfa. He says there is adequate moisture south of his area. However, north of his, it's pretty dry and they could use some rain. Now, taking a look at the root zone moisture, you can see there are pockets of wet areas, especially western Great Lakes down into the western plains, but parts of the south central, northern plains, and also the southeast still have some dry pockets. We'll talk more about that coming up, but first here are some hometown temps.
FarmJournalPro.com. Trusted analysis, professional insight. FarmJournalPro.com.
All right, when we come back, we'll look at spring planting and replanting and what it can mean for markets. And winemakers in the Pacific Northwest branch out their business into marijuana, but the growth has come with a flood of disputes over water rights. Detail later on Agday.
Agday is powered by Ram Trucks, America's longest lasting pickups.
And agribusiness equipment auction provider Ritchie Brothers just getting clearance from the Department of Justice to move forward with its acquisition of Iron Planet. First announced last August, the move gets Ritchie Brothers a better position in the online marketplace. The transaction expected to close in the next few weeks. The market's spending Monday speculating about the latest crop progress and conditions report. Let's see how things traded from the floor this evening.
Soybean market was sharply lower on Tuesday following a long holiday weekend, and as a matter of fact, traded into some fresh 14-month lows. We took out some key chart support last week. Your July futures and your November futures, that 940 level was a big-time spot. We traded through it and saw selling pressure really accelerate here. Funds are adding to a increasing short position and are getting pretty heavily short here ahead of the U.S. growing season. We've had a lot of bearish news in the bean market. You know, we've had weather that's been negative. We've certainly got a bearish supply-demand scenario. We're coming off a record South American crop, record U.S. acreage here expected. Despite all that bearish news, the bean market was unable to break out to the downside until just last week. So I think that Brazil currency deal really added some pressure and pushed this market into some new lows. Again, Joe Veklevic from CME Group here in Chicago.
With June just a day away, all eyes are on field work as the nation's farmers race to get spring crops in the ground. Tyne Morgan joins us with more.
Here now with Mike North of Commodity Risk Management Group. Mike, just a frustrating spring this year, a slow start to planting. Some farmers having to replant a second time, but we just have not seen this corn market really respond like some of these producers had hoped. Do you think in the next 2 weeks we could possibly see the market react?
It's real possible, but as we look at the pace of planting, while we've had to go back and do some replanting, the reality is we're right on track with what's normal, not just relative to last year, but also what's relative to the last 5 years. And so nobody's gotten excited about any slow pace, but they are starting now to question what the quality of the crop might be. What has been done to that seedling? What has been done to the flooded areas? Are we going to lose some acres? Are we taking the top off the yield? All these questions exist, but nobody has a hard and fast answer. And the old adage of rain makes grain still haunts many people that have tried to chase these spring rallies. So it's going to be slow to take place if it does in fact come around. But the reality is, I believe, if we can break through some chart resistance, we can motivate some funds and move some money in this market, a 20 to 30 cent rally is very much within reach.
But how hard will it be to move the fund position at this point?
It will be difficult because the real buyers of corn are not motivated to chase it. And that's really the 1-2 punch that a market needs. If you have money that's willing to come into a market and a real buyer of corn that's willing to push and bring the cash market with it, that's the recipe for a nice rally. We don't really have that. There's too much supply in the world for the buyer to get excited about chasing prices north of $4.
By the way, we're here at the Indy 500 Speedway, so a little ambient noise in the background. So with the possibility of a little rally in corn, what should a producer's strategy be at this point?
I'd be looking to get some targets in place. A lot of people have been gunning for this $4 threshold. Set some targets out there at or above $4 to capture futures prices. Basis likely won't go along for the ride just yet, so set your futures levels, get some sales made at these territories, but also defend yourself. And there's some great values in the put side of the market to defend yourself against lower prices should they come and this crop realize a better yield as we work through summer.
Have a game plan and be prepared. We hear it all the time.
All the time, and it's sound advice. There's really no way to dress that up. It's just good, solid advice.
All right, thanks, Mike North. Stay with us. We'll be back with more Ag Day in just a moment.
Cut through the uncertainty in the markets. Give Mike a call at 608-764-0012. Fast pace with design-matched transmissions for intuitive steering. Perfect cut for a carpet-like finish. And sweet ride with a comfort-focused seat. Grasshopper mowers are committed to the cut.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Our meteorologist Mike Hoffman. Mike, looking at this map, there's some places that have some real work to get done where it's just still too wet.
Yeah, when you look at the dark blue areas, and like you were pointing out before, central Indiana, northeastern Illinois, northeastern Iowa, western plains, those are some tough situations right now, because lots of folks are having to replant or just getting drowned out crops. Now, the dry areas that we look at least if you get some moisture over the next few weeks, you'll be okay. And it hasn't really caused any major issues quite yet. So we'll be watching that over the coming weeks. Let's go to the map today. Double barrel cold front coming southeastward, gets cooler and cooler off to the northwest and drier as well. Now there is some instability moisture though, with mainly afternoon showers developing to the south of that area of low pressure into the northern Great Lakes today. But you can see it's more of a hit and miss situation with showers and thunderstorms. I think there'll be more along this front near the Gulf Coast. And also in the Rio Grande Valley with that area of low pressure that's slowly coming northeastward. Another system coming into the Pacific Northwest isn't powerful, but it will cause some areas of rain showers as it comes inland across Washington, Oregon, and the northern portions of the Rockies. By tomorrow morning, you can see this area of low pressure up near Dallas. High pressure settling into northern Illinois, trying to dry things out in some of those wet areas there for 2 or 3 days here as that kind of drops southeastward. You can see by later in the day tomorrow that area of low pressure getting up almost to Texarkana. Showers and thunderstorms in the humid air to the south of it, but this is pretty dry, cool air to the north of it for this time of the year. Checking out precipitation estimates over the past 24 hours, you can see some of the heavier amounts, parts of the Rio Grande Valley, parts of the Gulf Coast region, especially Louisiana, adding in the next 36 hours. That's where a lot of the moisture is going to be in the far southland. Some of that area could use it, so that's not so bad news. And there's a few pockets across the central plains, a few pockets in the northeast as well. And I actually meant to take this map out. We'll take it out tomorrow. Snowfall estimate, nothing over the past 24 hours. There was one little pocket there, northern elevation of south central Colorado, showing up on our computer model, getting a little bit of snow. This afternoon, high temperatures mainly in the 80s in the southeast southern plains, but only 60s and a few 70s showing up in the Great Lakes in the northeast. Low temperatures tonight going to drop into the 40s and 50s. The Great Lakes into the northeast, but still 60s, northern Dixie, 70s by the time you get to the Gulf Coast. And more of the same tomorrow, although the 80s start to show up again in the high plains of the northwestern plains. There's the jet stream, and you can see this cutoff just north of the Great Lakes kind of sits there for most of the rest of the week, then it moves eastward. We still have some weakness in the upper atmosphere, trying to keep it cool across the Great Lakes into early next week as well. But that looks a little warmer to me than it did yesterday for the plain states. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. First of all, Alamogordo, New Mexico, partly sunny, a shower or thunderstorm in some areas, high of 79 degrees. Des Moines, Iowa, lots of sunshine and comfortable today, high of 78. And Durham, North Carolina, warm and humid, an afternoon thunderstorm in spots, high of 85.
Oregon winemakers think their soil is just perfect for another crop, marijuana, a business model for grapes and ganja, later on Ag Day. And next, our partners at the Packer join us with a look at an avocado demand and a huge jump in prices. In news from our reporting partners at the Packer, it appears after 2 challenging years, the 2017 Florida avocado season looks promising. The state's largest grower, Brooks Tropicals, is expecting the green skin crop will be 20% larger than last year. California produces about 90% of the domestic avocado crop in this country, and most of that is the Hass variety. But a wet winter and spring didn't help the quality. Still, demand is growing for avocados. The Hass Avocado Board says sales volume is up 11% year over year. Prices have also climbed. It was 99 cents per avocado in February. A month later, the Hass variety was $1.25 per piece. It appears the health benefits outweigh the hit to your debit card.
Now we're seeing avocados on everything. They're on pizzas with some arugula on top. We find avocados in salads. Avocados are even in egg rolls and in smoothies. Avocado has even made its way into desserts. So you'll find avocado ice cream and avocado sorbet. So avocado really is a versatile fruit.
With a smaller Hass crop coming from California, Florida growers expect a boost in demand for their varieties. And the sun can evaporate moisture, but it can also help create it. A Dutch inventor hoping his prototype device will provide a source of fresh water to arid parts of the world. The systems are simple, relying on solar power to cool air, which then condenses. They are still working out the kinks in the system, and water production is limited to about 2 gallons a day, but they see potential to generate enough water for agricultural purposes.
For drip irrigation in agricultural areas, this solution might also provide a major contribution because it barely takes energy, but nevertheless it provides water to plants which are able to survive in extreme circumstances.
They're far from production, but Dutch soldiers have begun to test them out during peacekeeping operations in Africa. So to come, vintners in the Pacific Northwest expand their business beyond wine. Now they focus on weed in the country. Next.
The agriculture community is always willing to lend a hand, and you can too. Learn more at wildfirerelieffund.org. In the Country, brought to you by Kubota's M5 series, bringing new levels of comfort to hard work. Learn more at Kubota.com or visit your local Kubota dealer today.
Recreational marijuana has been legal in Oregon for 2 years now. Some winemakers in one of the most fertile growing regions are branching out into marijuana as a new business venture. Jillian Flaccus reports on this business model of wine and weed and the water woes it may create.
The Steels moved to this sleepy corner of Oregon to produce premium, eco-friendly wines.
You can see the buds are starting to swell.
But now, a decade later, the owners of Cowhorn Vineyard are also talking about a different kind of bud. From a cannabis plant.
Well, we have Slowfo, Obama, Ox GDP. Last year we did about 30 plants. We had 5 different varietals or clones. This year we're going to go to closer to 60 plants.
While the Steels are only branching out into medical marijuana, the state's recent legalization of a recreational pot has sparked interest from more than a few winemakers.
We got to keep the gate closed because of the doggies.
Catherine Bryan runs Deer Creek Vineyards with her husband. She says this corner of Oregon in particular is perfect for growing the 2 crops.
I think that the reason that we can do really well in the cannabis industry is because of the experience we've had growing grapes and being in the wine business, because I think that there's a lot of parallels.
But pot farms and wineries don't always pair well. The explosion of recreational marijuana here has come with a flood of disputes, with some vineyards and other farmers accusing pot growers of stealing precious water rights. And some wineries are worried that the smell from outdoor pot grows could taint their grapes. Pot is still illegal at the federal level, and winemakers must be careful to keep the businesses separate or risk losing the federal permit they need to bottle and sell their wine.
This picture is actually better.
Catherine Bryan's pot will grow on land next to her winery, be labeled with a different name, and financed as a separate company.
We're doing everything we can to be as transparent as possible and be a good example for the rest of the industry.
Like Bryan, the Steels see tremendous potential as millennials drink more wine, but want their weed too.
They're looking for an experience of wine and weed. That's what it's called, wine and weed parties.
An entrepreneurial cross-pollination that could generate quite a buzz. Gillian Flaccus, Associated Press, Josephine County, Oregon.
There you have it. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. For Mike Hoffman, Betsy Gibbon, and all of us here at Agday, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.
Agday is powered by Ram Trucks, America's longest-lasting pickups.